#10 places on Earth you wouldn't survive for 24 hours. Some places on Earth don't need monsters, predators, or killers to scare you. The environment itself is enough. And as we go from number 10 to number 1, the conditions get so extreme that your body starts losing the fight against nature almost immediately. Number 10, the Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. In northeastern Ethiopia lies the Danakil Depression, one of the hottest and most hostile environments on the planet. Imagine stepping out of a vehicle and immediately feeling like you've opened an oven door. Temperatures can climb above 50 degrees Celsius, while the landscape is filled with salt flats, volcanic activity, acidic pools, and toxic gases. And this isn't the kind of heat where you simply say, "Wow, it's hot," grab a cold drink and carry on. Your body is constantly losing water. Sweat evaporates rapidly, dehydration accelerates, and without enough water and shade, your core temperature can rise dangerously. Some areas are also covered with pools of sulfur and acidic water, producing an almost alien-looking landscape. The ground itself can look beautiful, bright yellow, orange, white, and green, which is nature's slightly rude way of saying, "Please don't touch anything." Historically, the region has been crossed by Afar communities and salt caravans, proving that humans can adapt to extraordinary conditions. But drop an unprepared person into this environment with no water, no protection, and no route out. The desert doesn't need to chase you. It simply waits. Number 9, the door to hell, Turkmenistan. In the Karakum Desert of Turkmenistan sits a giant burning crater known as the Darvaza gas crater. People commonly call it the door to hell. And honestly, the nickname isn't exactly subtle. The crater was created after a drilling operation caused the ground to collapse, exposing an underground natural gas cavern. The gas was ignited decades ago, and the flames have continued burning for years. From a distance, it looks like somebody punched a hole through the desert and forgot to turn off the stove. But getting close is a completely different story. The crater is roughly 70 meters wide, and the surrounding environment is extremely hot and dry. Standing near the edge exposes you to intense heat, unstable ground, and potentially dangerous gases. And there's another problem. You can't simply wander into the crater and expect to climb back out. The steep walls and extreme temperatures make the area incredibly dangerous. So imagine spending a night there without proper equipment. No air conditioning. No hotel. No room service. Just a giant flaming hole in the desert. The only thing hotter than the ground might be your decision-making. Number 8, Death Valley, United States. California's Death Valley is famous for extreme heat. And there's a reason the place has earned such a dramatic name. In 1913, Furnace Creek recorded an air temperature of 56.7 degrees Celsius, one of the highest officially recorded temperatures on Earth. Now imagine hiking through the valley during an extreme heat event. The sun is beating down. There may be no shade. Your water supply is shrinking. And every step requires your body to dump heat somehow. The problem is that once dehydration becomes severe, your body struggles to cool itself. Heat exhaustion can progress into heat stroke, which is a medical emergency. And unlike a predator, heat doesn't make a sound. You may feel tired, then dizzy, then confused, and eventually your ability to make sensible decisions can disappear. That's especially dangerous in a huge desert. Because once you're confused, the person who needs to save you is also you. And apparently, your survival strategy was to walk deeper into the desert. Excellent planning. Death Valley isn't impossible to visit. Thousands of people safely explore it every year with preparation. but arrive during extreme conditions without enough water, protection, and an escape plan. 24 hours can become an extremely long time. Number 7, the empty quarter, Arabian Peninsula. The Rub al-Khali, better known as the empty quarter, stretches across a huge section of the Arabian Peninsula. It is one of the largest continuous sand deserts on Earth. And the name is fitting. There are enormous dunes, vast empty spaces, very little surface water, and temperatures capable of becoming brutally high. Now imagine getting lost there. At first, you might think the biggest problem is finding your way. It isn't. Your first enemy is water. Your body loses water through sweating and breathing, and in extreme heat, that loss can become rapid. Then comes exhaustion. Then confusion. And if you're carrying too little water, every wrong turn becomes more expensive. The landscape creates another psychological problem. Everything can start looking the same. One dune resembles another. The horizon offers almost no useful reference points. You walk towards something that looks close. It isn't. You keep walking. Still nothing. And eventually, the desert starts making the same argument over and over. You need water. The desert has none. Humans have crossed parts of the empty quarter for centuries, including experienced Bedouin travelers. But that's the point. Surviving a place like this isn't about being brave. It's about knowing exactly what you're doing. Otherwise, the world's largest sandbox becomes the world's worst place to lose your car keys. Number 6, the Atacama Desert, Chile. The Atacama Desert in northern Chile looks like another planet. In some areas, almost nothing grows. The landscape is incredibly dry, with some regions receiving almost no measurable rainfall for extremely long periods. Scientists have even used parts of the Atacama as analogues for Martian environments. And that's where things become interesting. Because your body doesn't care how beautiful the landscape looks. It needs water. It needs shelter. It needs a stable temperature. And it needs all three at the same time. The Atacama can also experience enormous temperature swings between day and night. During daylight, the sun can be intense. After sunset, temperatures can drop dramatically. So you're dealing with two completely different environments in the same location. Imagine watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. The desert becomes quiet. The temperature falls. And you suddenly realize that the landscape that looked harsh during the day has become freezing at night. There's no convenient supermarket around the corner. No emergency shelter waiting behind the next rock. Just kilometers of terrain. The Atacama is not a place where every visitor is doomed. People live and work there. But wandering into remote areas without preparation is another story. The desert doesn't have to kill you quickly. It can simply make every mistake harder to survive. Number 5, the Arctic Ocean. Now forget deserts. Let's go in the opposite direction. The Arctic. Imagine falling into the ocean surrounded by freezing water and ice. The first problem isn't hypothermia. It's shock. Cold water can cause an involuntary gasp, rapid breathing, and panic. Then the cold begins attacking your ability to move. Your hands become less useful. Your muscles become weaker. Swimming becomes harder. And eventually, your body starts losing heat faster than it can replace it. This is why cold water survival can be brutally short compared with what people imagine. You might think, I'll just swim until someone finds me. But freezing water doesn't care about your motivational speech. And the Arctic adds another nightmare. There may be no easy direction to swim, no visible shoreline, no warm building, just ice, ocean, wind, and enormous distances. Even after surviving the initial shock, hypothermia can progressively affect your coordination and thinking. So the person trying to save themselves can gradually become less capable of doing exactly that. The Arctic isn't evil. It's simply an environment built around rules your body was never designed to ignore. Number 4, the Valley of Death, Antarctica. Antarctica is already one of the harshest environments on Earth. But deep inside it are places that make ordinary winter weather look like a pleasant afternoon. The McMurdo Dry Valleys are among the driest and most extreme environments on the planet. There are almost no plants, almost no obvious life, and the landscape can look eerily empty. Temperatures can become brutally cold, while katabatic winds can race down from the interior. Now imagine being stranded there without proper protection. Your body is losing heat. Your exposed skin is vulnerable to frostbite. Your breathing becomes painful. Your fingers become increasingly difficult to move. And unlike a normal cold day, you can't simply walk into a house and warm yourself up. There may be nothing around you for kilometers. This is one of the strangest things about extreme environments. Silence can become frightening. There is no traffic, no crowd, no city noise, just wind moving across a frozen landscape. And if your equipment fails, suddenly the most important object in the world isn't your phone. It's shelter. Unfortunately, Antarctica doesn't do last-minute accommodation. Number 3, the summit of Mount Everest. At over 8,800 meters above sea level, Mount Everest enters a region climbers call the death zone. Above roughly 8,000 meters, the amount of available oxygen is dramatically lower than at sea level. Your body is struggling just to function normally. Every step becomes work. Breathing becomes harder. Thinking becomes slower. And exhaustion becomes overwhelming. The mountain also brings freezing temperatures, powerful winds, ice, avalanches, and rapidly changing weather. But the most terrifying part may be what happens inside your own mind. At extreme altitude, hypoxia can impair judgment. You can become confused. You can make decisions that seem completely irrational. And that's incredibly dangerous when you're standing on a mountain where one mistake can have enormous consequences. Experienced climbers have died on Everest despite having training, equipment, guides, and preparation. And rescue isn't simple. A helicopter can't casually land at the highest point on Earth. Other climbers may be exhausted themselves. So if something goes seriously wrong high on Everest, the mountain can turn a rescue mission into another survival situation. You might think the hardest part is reaching the summit. But sometimes the hardest part is simply getting back down. Number 2, the Challenger Deep, Mariana Trench. Now let's go somewhere humans were never designed to visit. Down. Very far down. The Challenger Deep, inside the Mariana Trench, is nearly 11 kilometers beneath the ocean surface. At that depth, the pressure is enormous. Imagine taking every car around you and stacking them on top of your body. Then imagine doing it again. And again. The water pressure down there is hundreds of times greater than at sea level. A normal human body cannot simply descend into that environment. Without a specialized pressure-resistant vehicle, the consequences would be catastrophic. And sunlight doesn't reach those depths. It's completely dark. The temperature is near freezing. The environment is crushingly pressurized. And there's no way to swim back to the surface. This is why reaching the Challenger Deep requires a specially engineered submersible capable of protecting the people inside. Only a tiny number of humans have ever reached those depths. The strange thing is that life still exists down there. Tiny organisms have adapted to an environment that would destroy an unprotected human. Which is a humbling reminder that Earth doesn't care whether conditions are comfortable for us. Life finds its own rules. And sometimes those rules exist nearly 11 kilometers beneath your feet. Number 1, the vacuum of space. And finally, the one place where you don't get 24 hours. You don't get 24 minutes. You don't even get a normal 24 seconds. You get seconds to minutes of consciousness, depending on the circumstances. Space is almost a perfect vacuum. There is no breathable oxygen, no normal atmospheric pressure, and temperatures can become extreme depending on sunlight and exposure. If an unprotected human were suddenly exposed to the vacuum of space, the immediate problem would be the lack of oxygen. You couldn't simply hold your breath. Your lungs need pressure. Without it, gases inside your body begin behaving differently, and unconsciousness can occur rapidly because the brain is no longer receiving enough oxygen. This phenomenon is called ebullism. Liquids can begin forming vapor at extremely low pressure. But despite what movies sometimes show, you wouldn't instantly explode. You wouldn't freeze solid in 1 second. And you wouldn't necessarily die immediately. The real danger is much quieter. You lose the ability to breathe. Your vision can become impaired. Your consciousness fades. And unless pressure and oxygen are restored quickly, the damage becomes irreversible. Space is terrifying because there is no terrain to fight. No animal to escape. No shelter to find. No direction that naturally leads you home. Just an environment where human life is fundamentally impossible without technology. And perhaps that's the strangest lesson of all. The most dangerous place we've explored isn't necessarily the hottest desert, the deepest ocean, or the highest mountain. It's the place where Earth itself simply stops being around you. Because every other location on this list gives your body at least something to work with. Space gives you nothing. Just silence. And an endless darkness where survival depends entirely on the thin layer of technology keeping you connected to home.